welcome to my channel. Today I bring you my 3D printed 2-speed e-bike conversion. Now originally it just started out as a 2-speed transmission, and it kind of evolved its way into a e-bike as some sort of test case or a vehicle to test the transmission on. We're going to start here with assembly. Start by putting the bearings in the outer caps, putting all the gears on the shafts, and sliding everything together, and then putting the other cover on. After assembly, I hooked the motor up to it and test everything out on the bench. First gear, second gear. Seems to work pretty good. Now I chose to test this on a bike. So you can see it here mounted up in Fusion, just kind of mocked up. To drive the rear axle, I set up a hub that I just literally bolted the sprocket to that clamps to the outside of the housing. So I just pushing it around, I ended up breaking the shift fork, and yeah, so you see here a bunch of neutrals. So here's the busted shifting fork. Yeah, it didn't hold up. So I printed another one 100% infill and kind of reinforced the design a little bit, made it a little stiffer. So all back together, we're going to do some testing, doing first gear and then second gear. So I'm not sure how fast it is, but I don't think I want to go that fast. You'll notice here when I kill the power and all that momentum starts pushing back against the motor that the chain whips around pretty bad and it catches on the tire and makes everything bounce around. Now when I go to put my motor controller on it, it turns out it's fried. So I assumed it was the MOSFETs, I'm checking the MOSFETs here. Turns out I'm an idiot, and the third thing is a diode, not a MOSFET, so the readings I'm getting to compare the two aren't related, and yeah, I never ended up being able to fix it, so I had ordered a new one. New motor controller came in pretty quickly, so I'll try and take it for a ride. And I get about here and the belt seems to fly off. I push it back on and it flies off again. This seems to be an issue. After my test drive, I taken a look here, popped the belt off, and you can see it's just shredded. So that's going to be an issue. To fix that problem, I switched over to timing belts. I drew up the 3D printed pulleys and belts for this custom. It is a GT5 standard, so I could put a normal belt on it. A little bit of foreshadowing, the 3D printed belt doesn't really hold up very well. Well, this did actually drive me for all of about 25 feet before it started to skip. I didn't get any footage of it, and yeah, here it is. You can see the teeth are pretty much shredded. Although the pulleys or sprockets themselves are in decent shape, so I'll keep those for another project down the road. So, to solve this problem, I made up a set of gears that should eliminate any slippage there. Hopefully they hold up. I ballparked about the same gear ratio. I don't want to gear the motor down too much, or it'll put too much strain on the transmission and start to break stuff. Well, with the gears on, everything seems to be working good. All I gotta do now is take it for a test drive. Oh, I didn't even make it down the driveway, but it was just the rear hub slipped off and then it kept pushing the chain off. So I loosened it, put it back, and tightened it back up, and then we're good to go. And finally, after all that, it finally pushes itself. It's still geared too high though, so I'm going to have to add a larger sprocket to the back to make everything work a little better. We're way out of the power band of that motor. And at this point, I try and slip it into second gear. It's a little finicky. You kind of got to get on and off the power and then just kind of slip it in the loose spot. In second gear, it's way too high. So again, I'm going to have to change the final drive so it works a little bit better. And here we see the signs that the next problem I'm going to have is starting to rear its ugly head. It's jammed up a little bit and I'm having a hard time getting it to shift back into first gear. So I play around with it, kind of keep it rolling and get on and off the power, and eventually I get it back into first gear. At this point I'm kind of enjoying the ride, you know, trying to enjoy a little bit of a win every once in a while, and then boom, it's pretty much done right here. You can see it pulling, but it won't move the bike. It's just slipping. So I do a little bit of troubleshooting, and well, very quickly I realized that it's slipping internally. At least all the gears seem to be intact and everything is working. It's just slipping, which leads me to the part that I already kind of figured is going to be the weak point in this transmission. So I end up pedaling my butt home and get it up on the stands and do a little bit more troubleshooting and show you how bad it really is. Well, I pulled it apart, and as I figured, this had failed. I basically just have the D shaft, if you watch the assembly part, and it had just pushed through the plastic and kind of deformed it. So there's no more D, it's just round. That won't do. One of the reasons I'm having this problem is because I only made 2mm walls and 25% infill, which just kind of leaves you this little bit of lattice work to reinforce the flat on the D shaft, which really doesn't give you a lot of strength, and since I'm using it to push my 175-pound ass around, it probably needs to be a little bit better. So the quick solution to this is to try and print it at 100% infill and see what happens from there. Other than having a solid plastic part, I'd prefer to have a spline shaft, but I don't really have the equipment to machine that here. So if everything fails, I'm going to go with a square drive and see what happens. The original plan was to go with lower gear ratio on the final drive. However, I've come up with something that will affect what gear ratio I want to choose and might allow me to run a little bit higher gears more comfortably with the little 200-watt motor I'm playing with. However, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it is behind me. So if you know anything about automatic transmissions or anything about hydraulics, you might know what this is. Or if you're following me on Instagram at TurboPrint2020, you will also know what this is. But for everyone else, I'm going to save it for the next video. If you like this, click like, hit subscribe, and share this with anyone you think might find this interesting. Have a nice one, and I'll see you back with my next video.